ahead and get started with the training. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. For some of you, this will be one of two trainings. I just recently attended one that I did last month in March, a basic training, and now this is going to be a more advanced training that's going to build on what we talked about in basic training, and it's going to go over more of the tools that are in iMap that are related to doing management efforts, as well as some querying capabilities that are available. So I just wanted to give kind of an overview of what today is going to be about. There's going to be times throughout the training that we will stop and take a break and have folks ask any questions that you might have. So feel free to take that time and just ask me anything you might be wondering about as we go through. And again, at the very end of the training, we will have a time for questions again at that time. So again, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, and just in the photo here, we can see some folks that are pulling purple loosestrife as part of some land stewardship efforts. And that is an example of an effort that you could document in iMap as a management effort. So essentially, they're performing a treatment. They're hand pooling this invasive species. And that information can be documented to know where that species is at, the work that was being done, the people who were doing it, the date it was done on, any other related details that go with that effort that can all get logged into the iMapInvasives system. Okay. So again, the iMap program is part of a broader network. Pennsylvania is not the only state that participates in this program. So currently there's 9 states and 1 Canadian province. And for our state, Pennsylvania has been a member of the network since 2013. So we're going now 4 years strong. And our members in the network include Arizona, Florida, Maine, New York, Oregon, Saskatchewan, Vermont, West Virginia, and Virginia. Using iMap, I always like to tell people to keep in mind what internet browser you're using, because this is really important to keep in mind. Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Safari, if you have a Mac computer, are all good browsers to use. But if you are restricted to using Internet Explorer, you have some difficulties navigating iMap. Because we found that for whatever reason, the structure and program of iMap does not play well with Internet Explorer. So I just like to let people know, if you do experience issues, just double check what browser you're using. It might be because of that. And if at all possible, when you can, try to use either Chrome or Firefox or the Safari Internet browsers. I'm going to go through it quickly and talk about the database itself, give you guys a snapshot of what that looks like, and just go over the basic structure of how iMap is put together and how it can be used. So just guys, whenever you log into iMap, this is the page that you're going to see. And for those of you who, after today's training, your user levels are going to be increased based on having attended today's training. So if your screen doesn't look like this now, it's because your user level is a little bit lower. But after today's training, it will look just like this when you log in. Okay, so starting on the left-hand side, the Enter Data section, this is where you want to go if you ever want to go and enter any invasive species finding that you've made, or it's also the place where you can go and log your management efforts. This is where you can go and actually visualize your findings as well as other people's findings of invasives, and again also view the management efforts that are happening across the state. So your data that you're inputting as well as data from other people. The table is used to look at data in a list format. It's going to give you information on individual data records, and that's going to be true for all the various data types, not just observation data. Then on our right, the query and report section. This is a tool that you can use to filter for data that you're interested in viewing. So, maybe you have a very specific criteria that you are interested in looking at for a certain data set, and that's where you can go and, fill in those filters and then look at the data that you're only interested in seeing. Up at the top in the right-hand corner is information on your user level. So it's hard to see in this row here, but if you look under where it says Welcome Back, Amy, just below that, it says user level 7. So you can see there what your user level is. And on our website, on the iMapInvasives.org website, is information on what each of those user levels means and what capabilities you have access to. So if you ever are wondering what that means, you can always go on our website and find that out. Another snapshot, this would be if you would scroll farther down on the main page, you would see this information. And so to start with, the edit profile is where you can go and actually look at the information about you that's specific to you, so your name, job title, your organization, and of information that you want to have in there is always good to fill in. The password is something to know about because whenever you get new login credentials, you may want to make sure you go in and update your password to one that's a little bit more secure to make sure that your account remains safe and no one else can access it. Manage My Alerts is the place where you're going to go create new email alerts and also edit or deactivate ones that you no longer need or you want to change. And at the very bottom is a section called My iMapInvasives Data. And this is where you can go and view the data that you've entered as well as download it. So you can actually download data directly from here into a Excel file, or you can also download it into a geodatabase. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but just know that no one except an administrator can actually download all of the data that's in iMap. You are restricted to data based on your user level, and again, there's more information on that on the website if you'd like to learn more. But if you do want to get more data than what your user level allows you to, you can always contact me and we can work that out from there. But just know that in order to download all data from the database, you cannot do that on your own. You have to contact me. Okay, so the data structure. Let's just go over this real quickly. Whenever you see an invasive species, what you're going to do in iMap is plot its location as an observation point. Record the patch size for something, you enter an assessment record. And again, this is getting into the advanced data that we will really talk about a lot as we go through this training. You're planning a search of a specific area, or you need to record absence data, like you looked for something and it wasn't there. What you do in either of those situations is add a survey record. Maybe you want to treat an infested area now that you know where it is and what's going on. You treatment record. Lastly, we do have an option to track all management efforts for a single species in a particular area. And this record type associated with that is called an infestation management record. We're going to talk more in depth about each of these as we keep going through. To highlight some of the specific parts of the Pennsylvania iMap program, just so you get a little bit more familiar with it. So including myself, I have two counterparts that work with me in iMap world. And so Kirsten Carlson and Mary Walsh are both staff as well as myself with the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program, and we are based out of the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. And Kirsten is within the Heritage Program, the Conservation Information Manager. And so she, as far as her role within the iMap program, she does a lot of work with data, a lot of work with our GIS and reference layers, and she handles some more of the technical aspects of the program. And Mary is who sort of does even more back-end work, retaining funding for the program, applying for and doing grants and grant reports. And so the combined, all three of us comprise the program in Pennsylvania. And for me, I'm sort of the front end where I really am the person to interact a lot with users, conduct trainings like what we're doing today, and answer folks' questions and go through and do a lot of other stuff. So three of us combined are the ones that are doing most of the work. So in Pennsylvania, the program here, the IMAP program, serves as an option to record invasive species at a statewide repository. I did include a note here to say that, just to clear any potential confusion. Right now, the IMAP program in Pennsylvania is not official. It's not been selected as being the place to go and put data by all organizations, but it is an option that people can use. Again, it's going to provide multiple tools to record distribution data as well as management efforts, and the data types that we'll talk about more include the assessment, the survey, the treatment, and the infestation management. The program, again, going to provide a single system where multiple organizations can gather and also share their data. It's sort of that one-stop shop. The administrators, so myself, Kirsten, and Mary, are all really knowledgeable on which species have a high impact on the natural resources within our state, as well as the places that would be most impacted, such as important ecosystems as well as rare, threatened, and endangered species. And some of the things that's really cool and really important about the IMAP program is that whenever we get reports for certain species that are what we would consider a high-impact species or a high-priority species, that information is not stagnant. It doesn't just sit in the database. Whenever we find something that needs to get sent to someone else that they need to know about it, that's exactly what we do. So, for example, just last year or maybe several years now, we've had at least 4 species, water lettuce, New Zealand mud snail, hyla, and European frogbit. We've gotten reports for each of these species, and each of these species are considered high-priority species because they have a high impact to natural resources or the economy or health or, several of those various things. And they need to be passed on. That information needs to be passed on to the agencies or the individuals who need to know about that information. So that's a really important part of how the IMAP program operates, is when we get data on those species, that then gets passed along to the folks that need to know. So again, talking about how the IMAP program gets data from a multitude of sources, and I listed some of them here, but not all of them. So we get data from a lot of nonprofit organizations. We partner with several cooperative weed management areas within the state, state agencies, also school groups, environmental consultants, and citizen scientists, which I consider to be a very important group of people. And so because we have this multitude of data sources, this diversity essentially allows IMAP to be a much more well-rounded and a stronger database because of that. And the reason I say that is because if you only got data from 1 or 2 of those groups of people, you would really be limiting yourself as how much data you can offer. And I like to point to the citizen scientists because, we get data from them that we then go through the QC process and make sure that the data they're giving us is good. But they are often very responsible for sending us information on high-priority species. And an example of that recently is someone who submitted data on New Zealand mud snail. And this was someone who has no affiliation with the state agency. He's what I would consider a citizen scientist. Information that he reported to us for New Zealand mud snail, which is a very rare species in our state, was something that got passed along to folks in several agencies, many of whom were really appreciative to have learned about that information. So again, because we have this diversity of data sources, I feel like the program is made that much stronger and useful because of that. To date, 89 organizations have contributed data to the Pennsylvania iMapInvasives program. Currently, we have over 9,000 observation records for various invasive species, and that's talking about having reported on on 230 species that we currently track. So staff, so myself and Mary and Kirsten, have conducted 42 trainings, and that accounts for 375 users. So regarding the high priority species that I've been mentioning, we have received reports for 7 species that are considered either early detection or high priority that has been submitted to the iMap program. And this has resulted in myself, the administrator, communicating with various agencies and other groups to make them aware of these findings. And again, people are really excited and happy to learn about these findings because they wouldn't know about it any other way unless it was found internally within their own organization. This data doesn't really travel like it should. And so that's one of the really important parts of the iMap database. So observation data entry is not going to be a big focus of today's training, but I want to just take a few minutes and mention it, so I do want to go over just a brief overview of this for everyone's reference. So observation is going to be one of the most basic components of that the iMap program supports, and this would be a report of a specific species found at a specific place on a specific date. Multiple observations can be made for the same population of species. And in the screenshot on the lower left is just a lot of various observation records within the database. And on the right, in case some of you have not seen this before, this is giant hogweed. It's a noxious weed in Pennsylvania, and if you ever find this one, report it, but don't touch it because you will get a really nasty rash from it. I've not gotten one myself, and I hope I never do. But just be aware that certain species, certain invasives out there are not people-friendly, and this is one of them. So because it's a state noxious weed, one that the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is very interested in knowing about. So if you find this one, reporting it to either the iMap program or directly to the Department of Agriculture will be greatly appreciated because this is one we want to completely eradicate from the state if possible. So observation data, of course, entering manually is an option. You can also use our mobile app to enter observation data as well, and I'll be talking about that in a few moments. If you have large data sets of observations, you can always submit that to me directly. So if you have about 75 or more records, don't feel like you have to, take a lot of time and enter that on your own if you don't want to, or if you don't have the time, we can always take care of loading that on our end. The basic components of an observation are going to be the photos that you took of the species that you found, the observer and their affiliated organization, a project, if any, a species that you found, the date you found on, and the location where you found it at. Just wanted to quickly note, whenever you are reporting observation data to iMap, make sure you're not reporting cultivated species, which that essentially is talking about species that have been purposely planted in yards, gardens, or other landscaped areas. So, for example, even if it is an invasive species, calorie pear, for example, but it's still very commonly planted in a lot of landscaped areas. And so because this is being purposely planted, you don't want to record that in iMap, but if it was found to be escaping into a natural area, that would be something we would want to know about. So just keep that in mind when you're looking and finding things. Reporting the cultivated species is not necessary, but reporting it in a naturalized area is most certainly something we want to know about. Interested in refreshing on how to enter an observation record into iMap, we do have a training video that's available on YouTube. You can also access it on the training page of the Pennsylvania iMapInvasives website. That's available whenever you'd like to go and use it if you need to. A bit about how data in iMap is quality checked. Again, this is really important because data that's going into iMap can be trusted because if it's not trustworthy, then there's no point in having it in there. And again, I like to look at quality over quantity. So just because you have 12,000 records, which we don't have that many yet, but if we did, how much of that is quality? I would want to be able to say that most of it, if not all of it, would be good quality data. And so that's something we really strive for with the iMap program and the data we put in there, is make sure that the data is either coming from a trusted source or coming from someone that we don't know, that we have really good quality photos, or I'm going to follow up with them and ask them questions to make sure that we know that species is actually the species they're saying that it is. So examples of how we got doing this QC process are some recent reports we got for New Zealand mud snail in Centre County. The photos were reviewed by a snail/gastropod expert. That's with the South Carolina University. His name is Dr. Robert Dillon. Although when we get reports of plant species, they're very often reviewed by some of the botanists that I get to work with here at the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. And I know that a lot of reports coming from folks at the DEP are already being confirmed by the Morris Arboretum in Philadelphia. So there's various levels of quality checking that's already happening sometimes even before it's coming to the IMAP system. And so again, we always strive to make sure that we're checking all of our data to make sure that it's good and it's trustworthy. We'll just take a quick break. Does anyone have any questions about anything we've talked about so far? Okay. Here we will continue on. Okay, so the mobile app. This is, again, something we talked about in last month's basic training, but I do want to go over it again because the app is still fairly new, and so I know many folks aren't familiar with it just yet, and so I like to kind of put in a little plug for it when I can. The mobile app allows you to very easily report on invasive species data directly to iMap while you're out in the field. It's really easy. And then what you do is when you're back in an area that has Wi-Fi, you can then upload your observations directly to iMap. I just want to go through and show you some screenshots of what the mobile app looks like and how to use it. So to get started, you want to go and download the app from either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, whichever type of phone you have. And you're going to look for search for the keyword iMapInvasives. And the view you should see would look something like this, where it has the name community. That's the one you want. So go ahead and click on that and install that on your phone. When installed on your phone, this is what the main page is going to look like. The very first time you open the app and every time you open it thereafter, this is always going to be the first page you see with these little white letters that have basic instructions on where to go and what to do. So if you click on the menu in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to let you fill in your preferences if this is the first time that you're using the app. So things that you would fill in would be your default states. You would put Pennsylvania. You would put your first and your last name. You're going to enter your IMAP username and your password. And you can list how the species list appears when you're actually making an observation. So you can say, I only want to see common names, or I only want to see scientific names, or I want to see both common and scientific names. And probably that last option of viewing species with both the scientific and the common is the best way to go, because sometimes certain species have those common names and they're known, differently. So probably the best way to go when it goes to looking at various species and recording what you're finding. To go and add an observation using the app, you will click on the green box in the upper right-hand corner that says Add Observation. Start, you're going to tap the little camera icon that's up there at the top, and it's going to open up your phone's camera so you can then take a distinguishing photograph of the species that you found. And the thing to keep in mind is the app can only store one photo per observation, but if you want to take more photos of what you found, you can do that. Just take the photos directly on your phone, and then you go back to a desktop computer, you can add those additional photos into the observation that way. So just know you can only take one photo with the app, but you can take several more with just your phone. Distinguishing photographs. This is really important. So unless you take really good photos, I'm going to be able to use them to be able to clarify and know what species it was that you were seeing. So keep some of these things in mind. Don't take photos from a distance, except if you're taking a photo of an infestation. Like there, the top left corner, the photo of a little girl and all the Japanese knotweed. That would be a good photo to take from far away because it's really showing you a perspective of how much Japanese knotweed is actually in this area. But then the other photos, you can see that you really zoom in really close and you get a much better idea of what this plant looks like when you're right next to it. So take photos from like top or an aerial view, from the side, or even under the like if you look at a plant from the bottom and look you're seeing the underside of a leaf. That's important too. And also there on the lower right-hand corner is what I like to refer to as a scale photo. And it's important too because you can see that there's a person in this photo. You see their hands, and that's giving you an idea or the scale of how large or small this species is that you're finding. And that can be really helpful depending on if something is really big or really small. You compare it to what, something the size of something that you already know about how big it is. So these good photos that you take are really crucial in order for me or another person to be able to confirm your findings. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so the observation details. So once you've taken your photos, the next thing you're going to do is you select a project name if you add your observation to an existing project. And so in iMap, if you're not familiar with what a project is, this is a way, it's like a tool basically that allows you to group data together that will allow for easy querying later on. And so sometimes people who are conducting a BioBlitz want a project so they can keep all of their BioBlitz data together in one place and then they easily find it later on. We'll do this for various reasons. Certain agencies have aspects that they want to be able to keep certain data together. For example, Pennsylvania Sea Grant has their zebra and quagga mussel database. Whenever we get data from them for that specific data set, it goes in a project that we have called the zebra and quagga mussel database. So it's purely optional. If it doesn't make sense for you to put your data in a project, then don't feel like you need to. But that is an option that you can do. Figure out if you want to put your data in a project or not. Keep going down. You're going to select the species that you actually found. And here you can see in the screenshot that we are looking at both the common name, Japanese knotweed, as well as the scientific name. So that's going to be a nice indicator to know that this is indeed the species that we are looking at. The date is automatically going to default to the current day, but it can be changed if needed. So if you were entering data from yesterday, you can change that if you need to. Your observation location. This is one of the things that the mobile app makes the whole process move a lot faster because your GPS will automatically determine your location. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to take coordinates. Your phone's going to do that for you. If needed, you can uncheck the GPS box to move the point to another location if it's not quite where you think it should be. Note that if you are in a place where you don't have cell phone coverage and you're making the observation, your base map is not going to display. So instead of seeing what we see here, you would just see like a white screen. But that's okay because it still means that even though you can't see the base map, your GPS is probably still working, and so it's still going to mark the correct location even if you can't see the map. So just keep that in mind. Getting to the end here, to make your observation a little bit more informative, adding comments is always a good idea. So you can include comments that might have information on the density of the population that you found. You could also include landmarks that might be nearby, about additional observers that were with you when you made the observation, anything that you think might help to make your record more informative and more helpful to either you or someone else that's looking at it. Go and make sure you put that in the comment section. Saving your record to a queue is the next thing you're going to do. It's going to show up on your app's home page, and it's going to make a list. So if you have like 5 records that you created, you're going to see a list of 5. that will show up in the queue on the home page. And once you're in data connectivity is when you're going to upload the records. So wait till you get to an area that has Wi-Fi, and then click the checkbox next to each of the records. And then from the menu, you're going to say, upload these records that I've selected. Going to confirm that you indeed want to upload the records that you've checked, and you're going to say OK. And you continue to see the observations in the queue after you've done this. It really means that something just didn't work that it was supposed to do, and it did actually upload. So just go ahead, do the same process, check the box next to the records you want to upload, and then once they do upload, they will disappear from your app, and that's a good thing. You want them to disappear, because that means that they have then been uploaded directly into the IMAP program. Once you've done that, you've uploaded your records, they're no longer showing up on your app, you go back to a desktop computer when you have a few moments and just add some additional observation details. So in addition to the comments that you've already added when you were using the app, you want to include things like how you made your location determination. Were you walking, were you hiking, were you, obviously you're using the GPS, so that's, something you want to mention. The site access, did you have to get permission from someone to get to the location where you were? Do you need to, get directions? Did you, like giving comments on how you got to where you were is really important, because again, that's going to help people know how to get there too if they want to go to that same place. Okay. And so just giving some information on what happens next once your report has been submitted by using the app. So when the report is received, it's going to be logged as unconfirmed data. And this is true for any data that we get. As soon as it gets submitted to IMAP, it's going to be called unconfirmed, because this essentially means that the administrator has not yet reviewed your data. If the ID of your species is correct, it will be confirmed. But if any questions about the species ID, again, following up with that QA/QC process, the administrator, or probably me, will be the one to follow up with you with any questions. Uploaded, your record is going to really help to support the database and help to support the folks that are out in the field doing work with natural resource management. It's going to help in better understanding species distributions in Pennsylvania, and also to help to prioritize survey and treatment efforts those folks involved in that field. If you have any other questions, or you want to go back and learn more about how to use the app, there is information available for that on the iMapInvasives.org website, which is our network website, and there's a whole user manual there that you can use to go back and refresh your memory on some of this stuff. Okay. Was there any questions on the mobile app? So about email alerts next. Email alerts are something that IMAP offers, which will really help you to stay much more aware of what species are being reported within Pennsylvania or within a certain region. And then it's going to be customizable so that the alerts that you would get, if you got them at all, are going to be relevant to you and your particular interests. Being informed of recent invasive species findings is one of the key components of our email alert system. They will essentially help to prioritize your organization's survey and treatment efforts, and this is going to, again, be based on the data that you customize, that you want to be alerted on. And it will ultimately help to lead to action to hopefully prevent the spread of invasive species that may be rare within the state, and we have a good chance of actually eradicating them, or even species that are recently discovered in Pennsylvania for the first time. And so here in the photo, this is showing folks that are involved in pooling water chestnut. And so this event could have happened because someone got an email alert saying, hey, there's water chestnut in this area, and maybe you wanted to know about that so that then you could organize an effort like this. So a dynamic aspect of IMAP can be seen in this email alert example, because it's really make sure that that data is not static. It's not just sitting in the database. It's actually going out to people who need to know about it, and the action can be taken in whatever way is appropriate. So the 3 alert types that are available in IMAP, you can choose to make use of the alert that best suits your needs, and we're going to go over each of them so that you know what they are. So this is called a continual alert. And this type of alert is going to put a focus on any one individual species or a group of species that you have an interest in staying aware of. So what you do is once you choose the species you're interested in, you choose an area of interest. Maybe you don't want to know about, all of Pennsylvania, though that certainly is an option. Maybe you only want to know about a species being found in a certain county. Or maybe you're the leader of a cooperative weed management area and you only want to know about species being reported in that area. Maybe you are a watershed specialist and you only are concerned about species being found in particular water bodies. So these are all areas of interest that you can customize based on you and your particular interests. Observations that will trigger this alert are going to be more recent ones, so observations found 1 year ago or sooner. There's basic type of alert that is available through IMAP, and it's really going to help you to stay informed of invasive species findings that are important just to you. So an example of a continual alert would be something like this. You could say, alert me every time mile a minute is found in the town of Murraysville, Pennsylvania. Maybe you are from that area or you're in charge of doing management, and so that would be something that you would want to know about. Here's examples of a continual alert. You could alert me anytime calorie pear is reported in the Bennett Branch Forest. Maybe you're only, doing work within certain managed areas, and this is one of them. You alert me anytime bog bulrush is reported in Lancaster County. So maybe your scope is a little broader, and you want to know things that are happening at a county level. And this one, alert me anytime a round goby is reported anywhere in Pennsylvania, is also very valid because species that are fairly rare within the state, and so no matter where they're being found at, we want to know. And so having this alert for all of Pennsylvania can be very useful for several different kinds of species. So this alert is called an early detection alert. And this alert is going to put a focus on species that are rare or not yet found in Pennsylvania. Again, just like that continual alert, you choose an area of interest. Again, just like the continual alert, it's going to trigger on alerts that are fairly new, so 1 year or sooner that they've been found. So you're aware, the IMAP program considers a species an early detection species if there are 3 or fewer observations of that species that has been found in a specified area. So for example, only 2 reports for wavy leaf basset grass have been reported in York County to date. So this means that this species is an early detection species because it has 3 or fewer reports and it's being found only in a certain geography with those 2, with essentially only 2 reports so far. Once that is in that county has more than 3 reports, it's no longer going to be considered an early detection species. So ultimately, what this alert strives to do is to raise a red flag when a new or very invasive species is found in our state, which will ultimately help to aid in early detection and rapid response efforts. So wavy leaf basset grass example, another that you could do for this type is to say, alert me if wavy leaf basset grass is found anywhere in Pennsylvania. Again, this is this species in particular, that is still fairly rare within our state. We only found it in York County right now, and hopefully it stays that way. But if it's found anywhere else, probably a lot of people want to know about it. And so this type of alert will keep you informed of when that would happen. Examples of an early detection alert would include something like this. So disease snapweed, this is a species that has not yet been found in Pennsylvania. If you have an alert for it, the first report that we would get would trigger an early detection alert, and you would be informed the following day. is another species that has not yet been found in Pennsylvania. Again, this would trigger an early detection alert, if we did start receiving reports for this species. Starwort. This is one that we do have in Pennsylvania, but it's still considered to be rare. So if you chose a specified geography, so if you chose a county where it hasn't been found at yet, or one that doesn't have very many reports, this would again trigger an early detection alert so that you could know when this was being found. The third and final type of alert is called a new to geography alert, and this one is a little bit different than the other two. It's going to focus on a group of species only, so you can't actually select an individual species with this one. I'm going to focus on species where being found in an area that they've never been found before. So just like the other two alerts, you're going to choose a specific area of interest. And to understand this alert a little bit better, it's different from early detection alert. This can be or even like common species, but maybe it's just a species that hasn't been found yet in a certain area, even though it's really widespread across the state. So ultimately what this alert tries to do is if you already know a species, grouping of species that's found in a certain place, and you just want to know when a new or different species is found in this area for the first time. This one is going to be also a little bit different from the other ones because it's going to trigger on email alerts, or it's going to trigger on observations that are a little bit older, that were reported at least up to 200 years ago. So this one's going to be a little bit different in that regard. A new to geography alert could be something like this. You could say, alert me when any new terrestrial plants or that grouping of species is reported in Bear Run Nature Reserve. And for those of you who may or may not know, Bear Run Nature Reserve is home to the Falling Water House, which is a landmark that is owned and operated by the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. That's located in that county.
I mean, the lilies and stuff you could plant at home.
Some other examples of a new to geography alert would be something like these. You could say, alert me when any new plant species is reported in Warren County. So if you're just really concerned about that particular county and you just want to know when something new arrives, you could say, alert me when any new aquatic animal is reported in the Pymatuning Reservoir. Again, maybe you're someone that is really concerned about just aquatic species, and this would be an important one for you. You say, alert me when any new terrestrial plant species is reported in Bucktail State Park. So again, maybe you're only interested in a certain area, like this particular park, and you just want to know when something new arrives that you didn't know about before. So again, we'll take just another quick break. Does anyone have any questions about the mobile app or email alerts or any comments?
One question, this is Jim Ugar. It seems to me, I recall reading that there has to be, in order to establish a project, it to be done at a certain level, your training level. Is that true, or am I?
So, yes and no. How do you like that for an answer? So you have to be, you be a basic user and set up a project. The thing that you have to be a certain user level for is to be a project leader. And a project leader essentially has the capability to do a little bit more with projects than the average user does. It also allows them the ability to confirm observations that go into that project. And that usually is an option, or a capability, I should say, that's reserved only for the administrator. So that's why we have to increase the user level a little bit for that one. But you can be pretty much any user level. So anyone on the phone call or the training today would be able to create a project if you wanted to. And if you are interested in creating a project, you just have to reach out to me, and I just need a few details from you, and we can get the project set up for you right away.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Is there other questions or comments? Okay. let's really dig into what today's training is really all about, talking about our advanced data records. And so again, this is going to include the assessment, the survey, the treatment, and the infestation management records. I'll start off with assessment data. So assessment data is really useful in documenting efforts to better understand the impacts that are being caused by an invasive species at a particular or specified location. The reason you might have wanting to capture assessment data could include any of the following. So you want to understand what the threats are to a certain area. You want to get a better handle on the intensity of an infestation. You want to know the damage that's being done, or also just want to do some pre- or post-treatment planning and evaluation. So getting an understanding of the area that is involved, not just an observation where it sort of points to the location, but the assessment is going to give you the ability to draw a polygon around the whole area that's being impacted. These are just some of the reasons why you might have to create that assessment record, because it's going to provide the data fields that will allow you to enter that information. So just a quick example of a scenario that would involve creating an assessment record. So say you were in an area that was a natural area and being disturbed by another invasive species. So the area was being choked out by Phragmites, and then the photo here that you see. So the damage that's being caused is the native species being able to grow here, which obviously that's a really big problem. So this tells about the area. This is a woodland area, and there are some rare species that are present. Again, a really important detail. So what we want to do with this record is we want this to be a management candidate, so something that we want to put some work into the future. And so treatment ultimately is going to be needed in order to bring back the native seed bank that we know is there, and it just needs a chance to grow. So it would just be a hypothetical scenario that you would say, I know that there's this big patch of Phragmites. I know there's an issue that's being caused by this. I want to document the area that's being impacted. I want to give a few more details about what's going on, and I want to list this as something that we need to work on in the future, aka that management candidate. Also, including photos is really important because it's going to help your assessment record better explain, what's going on here. How big of a patch of Phragmites are we talking about? Those sorts of things are really key to any assessment record that you would create. So survey data. It's going to be a record that allows you to conduct a planned search of an area to determine the presence or the absence of specific invasive species. So here's how you might want to document a survey record. You were part of a BioBlitz, and you have to be able to include all of your information within a specific survey record specific to that BioBlitz. Perhaps you're out doing research, academic research, trying to learn about the distribution of a single species. You're doing a survey in order to go out and do that work. Perhaps you're part of a community group that's in charge of maintaining a park, and you go out and do various surveys throughout the year to see what you find or what you don't find. Also use them if you're part of a group that does stewardship activities, such as many, land trust or other conservation groups. You go out perhaps and do a survey and just accurately document what you're finding on a particular property. Again, what you're finding and what you're not finding. Maybe there's a certain species that's in the area, but it's important to document that that particular species was not found on the property that you are surveying. It's really important to note that right now, the survey data type is the only way you can document negative or absence information, so where an invasive species was not found. You cannot do that with an observation. You can only do it with a survey. Again, another hypothetical example for creating a survey record. Perhaps you went out with the goal of searching for presence or the absence of Didymo in French Creek. And if you haven't seen Didymo before, here's a few photos of what it looks like. It's gross. but if you look at it up close under a microscope, it actually resembles a Coke bottle, which is kind of cool. So once you went out with that goal and did your survey, did you actually find what you were looking for? Did you detect DidyMo or not? And so in this case, we're going to say that DidyMo was not detected. So we essentially did a survey, and we came back with absence data. The details could talk about where you were. So you surveyed a portion of French Creek, and that's obviously going to be detailed in the polygon that you draw. Also talk about the methods of survey that you did. So you could say I performed an underwater survey, and this included snorkeling and also a visual assessment from the shoreline. So all these details, again, are really going to be helpful, not only for you, who, obviously you want to make sure you capture your data accurately, but it'd be helpful to other people who are logging into IMAP and looking at your data as well. So you want to include as much pertinent information as you can. Okay, so the purpose of documenting treatment data is going to hopefully lead to eradicating or trying to control and suppress invasive species populations. So currently in IMAP, there's some different types of treatment records that you can enter. It's all under the heading treatment, but these are options within that component of the program. You include a chemical treatment record. You could include information about a hand pooling effort that was done. Grading, which at least in the Pittsburgh area, we have at least one or two companies that specialize in renting out goats to do grading on invasive species. People will also do prescribed burns. There's also barrier, like people will use cardboard to sit down over certain areas to block the sunlight and hopefully kill the invasive species that way. Bioagent, a lot of times are insects that are being used as suppression agents. There's probably other bioagents out there as well. And also an organized hunt would be another kind of treatment type. A good hypothetical example for a treatment record would be something like this. So you have a goal of suppressing a 2-acre population of Japanese knotweed on land that's owned by a private conservancy. And you're a little hesitant on using chemicals, and you prefer another way to go. So you contract out with a local group. So I'm going to use the example of Allegheny Goatscape. Out some goats and do some invasive species work. So the details that go along with this treatment record would be something like the following, where you say I rented out 10 goats for a 2-week period. Plenty to worry about for the goats, but there were a few rare species, and so this area was going to be fenced off or protected in some way during the grazing event, and that you also needed permission from a landowner to get permission in order to do some work on their property as well, since they were nearby. So in addition to drawing your polygon and saying where this work was happening, these examples of what you would ultimately put into your record as well. Again, the more information you can put in, the much more helpful and useful it's going to be. So the last data type is going to be our infestation management record, and you're going to hear me refer to this as an IMR just because it's easier to say, and so that's what I'm referring to. So the IMR is going to allow you to compile all of your management efforts together for a single species at a specified location. So this really is your one-stop shop. Reasons you might have to create an IMR, and again, these are just 2 out of probably many reasons that there might be out there to create something like this. Part of a land stewardship department in charge of maintaining various sites on which you have protected properties at. And you ultimately want to know where in the management process each of these properties is at. So if you create an IMR that includes all of these various properties, you'll be able to pull all of that various data together. And again, that's going to include all the data types. So it's going to include all the observations that are related to it. It's going to include all the assessments, all the surveys, and all of the treatments. So you can easily have that all together in one place. Another example might be something like this. There was a reservoir that was surveyed specifically for hydrilla, various sections over many years, and each section was recorded as an individual survey. So looking at each individual survey one by one, you can group all of these surveys together, and you'll be able to see the total amount of sections that were surveyed and the timeline of how long hydrilla has been known to exist there. So these are just, again, a few examples that I came up with that would be a good idea to then go and create IMR. And usually IMRs are only created for the person who is making them. So I mean, you can still, others can view your IMR, but I think it's most helpful to the person who's actually creating it, because it's really for your benefit to keep all this information together and really know what's going on. An example of the using the IMR is going to be one that is here that folks at the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy were a part of. Lake Pleasant up in the Erie County area is an area that we manage. So in the last several years, there's been Eurasian water milfoil that's been found not in the lake itself, but in some ponds that surround the lake. I'm concerned because we wanted to make sure the milfoil did not spread to the lake itself. And for those of you who don't know Lake Pleasant, it's a glacially formed lake, and it's one of few that have that state. And also very pristine, and it doesn't have a lot of issues with invasive species currently. And so we really try to keep it that way as much as possible. And so this effort to try to get rid of the milfoil in the surrounding ponds is a really important and focused effort to ensure the future of Lake Pleasant. So creating an IMR for work being done near Lake Pleasant, here to find out about the management efforts that are related to the work with Eurasian water milfoil. We know that the very first finding was in 2007, and we can know a specific date, and we can also know who the person was that made that observation, if that's important to know. We also know that milfoil is still being found more recently. Back in 2014, it was still being found at this area, so that's important to know. There's your timeline. 2007 was the first finding, and we're still finding it in 2014. You can know who the group was that was responsible for finding it. To learn about the most recent management efforts that are happening. So in 2016 of May, there was chemical treatment that was done on the ponds near the lake. And so you can also see, because all that information is going to be grouped together, a total of 3 treatment efforts were conducted at this site over the time that the work is being done here. So again, the ability to group all that data together is going to allow you to do this type of data analysis. You can really get a much better handle on what's going on. Anyone have any questions about any of that?
Thanks, Jessica Newbern. I had a quick question. So the survey data in with the IMR, you can always just keep adding to it, or do you have to kind of have them completed before you create the IMR?
So the IMR it's a dynamic thing, so it's something that you can consistently be adding data to, and then if it ever gets to the point that you just don't need to add anything else to it, then you just don't add anything else to it. It's up to you as to how you want to manage that. Your question?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. So we talked about advanced data and how to go about creating that and why you might want to do it. And let's talk about how you actually go in and find that data. And so there's several ways you can do it, and sometimes it makes more sense to do one way over the other. This is going to be look for data that might be yours, or it might be data that belongs to someone else, but you're interested in looking at it. Okay, here's an example. We just finished entering an assessment record. Go back into IMAP and retrieve it. So there are 3 ways that you can do this. You can find the affiliate observation that the assessment record is related to, the map, or you create a custom data query. And we're going to go through each of these so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, option 1, find the affiliated observation. here to start, you log IMAP, and this is going to be the main page that you see, and click on the View Table. And you're going to locate and open the appropriate observation record using the search bar near the top of the page. And you're going to the observation ID. And so we searched for it, and now we found it. It's at the very bottom of the screen. And once you click on that and open your record, this is what it will look like. Open the record, you're going to scroll down to the Related Records section, which is about halfway down. And notice that there's a hyperlink there. And hyperlink is going to be the ID number for the related assessment record. It's essentially going to, it's tied to, the assessment and the observation are tied to each other. They're linked. And so that's an easy way to find if there's already an assessment record created for this observation. So that once you click on that link, it's going to you right to the assessment record that you're looking for. So that's one way to find that data, is to be able to use the map. So back out to the main page and click on View the Map. And legend on the left-hand side of the page, you're going to scroll down to the Invasive Species Detailed section. This is at the very bottom of the page. And so once you're there, you're going to check the box next to the type of assessment that you're looking for, because there's various types of assessments. And the types include animals, insects, and plants. And so it'll say, I'm interested only in animal assessments. So you choose that, and you see very well, but there was a few things that just showed up on the map. It gives the background, which is also another option in the legend on the left-hand side. You can see those assessments much better now. They are very small because we are zoomed out fairly far. And there we're just looking at how I changed the map layers. Let's look at one of these specific assessments and get a little bit closer. So you hold the Shift key down and draw a box around the assessment that you're interested in looking at. You'll be able to zoom in very easily and get to see that assessment much closer up. If you click right on that polygon directly in the map, it's going to pop up. I'm going to show you all the assessment records that are currently in the area where you just clicked. You're going to choose from there the assessment that you're specifically interested in looking at. So I want to look at the middle one, and then I'm going to open up your assessment record. So you can do it right there from the map. So that you can look for our assessment record. If you go out to the main page and say View Table, before you click on View Table, you'll notice just below that there's a section for all the different data types. And so you can click right on animal assessments from the main page, if you see where my arrow is pointing at. So if you clicked on that, bring up a table of all of the animal assessments that we currently have logged into the system. And you go to the Custom Data Query button, and you choose that. It's going to bring up a window where you can choose from 11 different data fields to search for a specific assessment record that you're looking for. In this case, I'm going to say that I know the observation ID number that this assessment record is affiliated with. Again, you can do various different things. This is just one way to do it. Fill in that information, and if you scroll down to the very bottom of the screen, it's going to give you options to view your query in a table or a map. And for this one, we're going to look at it in a table. You can see here my assessment record. It's showing up in the table. You click on that, it's going to then bring it up for you so you can get to that record very easily. So that was just for assessment records. If you wanted to query for a survey, treatment, or an infestation management record, you'd be able to use the map or do a custom data query. You would not be able to use the affiliated observation method. This only works for assessment records. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You would essentially do the same thing we just did for the map or the data query if you wanted to find any of these other advanced record types. Okay, any questions about what I just showed you guys there? We'll keep moving on. Right, so, view data on the map. There's a lot of stuff you can look at on the map, including all the advanced data, but here we're going to talk more about some of the species distributions that you can view, as well as both on a statewide and on a local scale, as well as some of the reference layers that are available on iMap. When you're using the map and you're turning on and off various layers, this is likely going to be something, this particular screenshot is something that you're likely going to see a lot of. So what does this mean? How do you interpret what this is saying? Well, this is going to be data specifically for observations, and the numbers inside each of the circles and squares essentially represents the amount of observations that are being found in that particular area of the state. Circles represent data that has a precise location, also been QC'd or it's been reviewed by the administrator. These squares are going to represent also data that's been QC'd by the administrator, but it has a non-precise location. So it's approximate to an area. It's approximate to a county. It's approximate to a town. It's approximate to a water body. It's approximate to very many things. Just understand that if it's orange, it's not going to have a precise location, but it's still important data to include. The yellow circles are going to represent data that is either precise or approximate, but not yet been reviewed by the administrator. So if you see data in these yellow circles, just know that it's probably not yet trustworthy. You don't want to look at it and say, oh, this species has been found here. Just know that it's showing up, but it's not yet been reviewed by the administrator. And once it has been reviewed, it will get changed to either a green circle or an orange square. It will no longer be yellow. There's a lot of different reference layers that you can use when you're using the map. And I have various photos and screenshots here of them. So over on the right-hand side, the top right, there's an area for turning on and off various base layers. Excuse me. This is going to include the street layer. We also had kind of the darker map layer, which was the hybrid or the aerials. And we have the option to use both Google and Bing Maps. So you can use whichever one you want. On the left, we have various overlays that you can use. And they're really helpful in getting a better understanding of data that you're looking at on the map with one of these reference layers turned on. So we have a cooperative weed management area layer for all the various CWMAs within Pennsylvania. We have county layer, we have hydrologic unit code or HUC. We have major water bodies. We also have the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program's natural heritage areas, which represent places that are really important when it comes to rare, threatened, or endangered species. And so that can be useful depending on if you want to try to protect a rare species. You might want to do something that involves the NHAs. Down at the bottom in the overlay section is where you're going to turn on your observation data. Again, you're confirmed, and your approximate data. That's where you turn on and off. And then a lot of what we've been talking about today has been our advanced data records, our assessments, our surveys, our treatments, and infestation management. And there's a specific section where you can turn on and off of those various layers as well. Layers. Again, these are going to be really helpful in better understanding data once you have it on the map. So this is sort of a tool you can keep in your pocket. So this is what the county layer would look like if you needed to use that. A view of what the hydrologic unit code 6 layer would look like. For those of you who aren't familiar with HUCs, these are a term that's used to describe the watersheds in our state based on their size. And the size of some of the HUC 6 watersheds in Pennsylvania. The HUC 8, so the number that you go in HUCs, the smaller the watersheds become. So here's the HUC 8 looks like, and here's the HUC 12 layers. So again, these are for the folks that are really doing work related to aquatics. This is going to be a layer for them. Call who is involved in cooperative weed management areas. This layer that's going to be a really important tool for you to use because it's going to allow you to see all the data that's being incorporated that's within the region you manage. just to point out what's on this page, upper left-hand corner is the Lake Erie Watershed CWMA. In the north central region is the Cinnamon CWMA, which we have Nikki Wright on the call today, and actually the coordinator for the Cinnamon group. Down in the lower left, where there's a lot of dots, that's the Southern Laurel Highlands Plant and Pest Management Partnership. Big blob kind of just below the word Pennsylvania is the Juniata CWMA, and the one over on the far right-hand side, which is by far the largest one, is the Delaware River Invasive Plant Partnership. And right now, the Erie, Cinnamon, and Southern Laurel Highlands are all active groups. The Juniata and the Delaware, as far as I know, are inactive at this time. Just kind of give a little bit of information about what the CWMAs are, is basically a partnership of a lot of different groups and individuals that are working together within a specified region to do work specifically with managing invasive species. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to give any details on that. You're a much better person to explain it than I am, probably.
That was basically it is, just a whole bunch of partners working together to manage invasive plants within a specific watershed.
Very much. So continuing on with some of our reference layers, we have a streams layer. This is one that, just so you know, when you're in IMAP and you're trying to turn this one on, just know that you have to zoom in a little bit on the map in order for it to show up. If you look over there where I have a circle around the word stream, you'll see that it's been grayed out, and that's because I wasn't zoomed in far enough to turn it on. But once you get to a certain zoom level, the layer will be able to be used at that time. So using reference layers, you can also look at data not just by the point, so where it's at specifically, but you can also just look at county level data. Sometimes that's really helpful to just really understand, generally where things are within the state. And you can see that this map is showing the current distribution of water chestnut in Pennsylvania, and the various colors of blue is representing the amount of observations that's been found for this species in a particular county. So essentially, the darker the blue, the higher number the amount of observations that are found in that county. And this is not a representation of population density. It's only talking about the number of observations that have been found. And so this is something that you would like to use. It is available if you're on the map. There's a section called distribution. From there, you can choose whether you want to look at an animal, an insect, or a plant, and you choose that species, you choose county, and then you turn this on, and this information is available. So it's kind of really helpful to get a quick snapshot of where something is being found at within the state based on the data that we've had received to us so far. The idea is true. You can do this also with watersheds. Again, folks that are more interested in the aquatic side of things would probably find this really useful. So this map is talking about the current distribution, the current number of reports that we have for zebra mussel in Pennsylvania. So again, going to that distribution section on the map, choosing what species you're interested in looking at, and then choosing to view that at the watershed level. It's going to give you a very good idea of where things are within the state. Maybe it also shows you some data gaps. So if you know that something is in a particular part of the state and it's not showing up on this map, then that tells you that we're lacking that data, and we probably would really appreciate if you wouldn't mind giving us data on that species. Again, really helping to fill in those distribution and data gaps. I'm going to give an example of how you would use the map to search for a particular species in the various locations that it's been found at. And my example is going to be purple loosestrife. So on the map, and you're looking there at the top, there's a search bar. If you just simply type in the name of the species, you can use either common name or scientific name. We typed in purple loosestrife. Magnifying glass, and that's going to search a map, and then from there, all of the records, all of the observation records are going to show up on the map, and it's going to show you where that species has currently been found in the state. And also notice that in addition to Pennsylvania, we also have a lot of data from New York as well as Virginia that's showing up as well. And because, again, part of that network, so because New York and Virginia are both participating in that program, we can also look at their data as well. Now, just note that you can look at the data, but if you wanted to pull up the record details, you'd actually have to log into that state's database. So, for example, if you wanted to look at any of the records you're seeing there from New York, you can't view the record details if you're only logged in at the Pennsylvania level. You have to go to New York's IMAP database and log in under their program to be able to see their record details. Also, again, we just talked about the county level data. You do have the option to view that, and I think it really helps the map to really show you much more information than it did before, because now in addition to all these various observations, we can see the various counties that are being impacted. It's a much better visual to have and to better understand. Turning on additional reference layers to better understand the data. You have the CWMA layer turned on, so you can see from a state level, statewide level, where some of these observations fall. You can always zoom in a little bit closer on the map to get a better understanding of where things are within those certain places. This is a layer of the natural heritage areas, again, the places that have significance when it comes to rare, threatened, or endangered species, so this might be an important layer for you to use. This is managed areas, so you can see some of our large tracts of land that are still in a natural state, and so this may be helpful for those of you who maybe work for the Forest Service or places that are interested in that kind of information. And it gives another county layer, just kind of giving you a better understanding of which county certain species are being found in. So also, it's hard to show since I'm only in a PowerPoint, but I do want to show you guys the ability to view data dynamically in iMap. And so this is a picture or screenshot of the data that we currently have for water chestnut in Pennsylvania. And this map by itself, it's full, but it could be better. So here to make it better, I'm going to add some reference layers. So here I've turned on my county distribution layer, so I can really see and I can pinpoint which counties are being impacted by this species. Let me get a little closer, and I want to know specifically where some of these observations are being found at. And so I zoom in on the southeastern part of the state. Here I can really see the various parts of the counties where water chestnut is being found at. And again, those green circles represent precise, confirmed observation data. So to learn about any one of those observation records, what you have to do is click on one of them, and it's going to bring up a table of all the various observations that are being found in that area, and you can access the record details right from this Manage Record Results page. So it's very easy to look at stuff on the map and go right to the record itself. Okay, so I'm really excited about this part of the training because the Lasso tool is a new tool that just came out with a new version of iMap about a week or so ago. So this is literally, you are the first ones to get to see this, and I'm really excited to show you. So the Lasso tool is a feature that provides a faster and more effective way to understand data that's being shown on the map. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that, but first I want to talk about the reasons why you might want to use this tool. The Lasso tool, if you're creating a management plan and you need to know which species already exist in a certain area, and you really want to figure this out without having to click on every single observation record. You want to know which invasive species has been found in a local park or other recreational area, getting a good idea of all the species that are being found in a particular area that's not already being defined by like a managed areas layer or CWMA. It's much more specific than that. I want to create reports of invasive species that are being found in just any other area of interest that you may choose. So access the Lasso tool. Well, up here, just above the map, there's a little dialog box that has, or I'm sorry, just a little icon that looks like a polygon. That's your Lasso tool. So in the Lasso tool, this is how I'm going to sort of show you guys how this works. So example is I want to see all the species findings that have been reported at the Flight 93 National Memorial. This is going to be according to data that's been submitted to iMapInvasives. So what we're in the map, we're going to be on the main page. We'll open the map, and we first want to zoom to the area that we want to look at. So of course we're interested in the Flight 93 area. So we can either zoom right to it, or we can just type in the area that we want to go to and let the map take you right there. So by saying it takes me right to the area I want to go to. I'm going to turn on the observation data. So I'm going to turn on the confirmed and confirmed data. And when I do that, it looks like this particular area only has confirmed data. It doesn't have any approximate. And that's going to show up on the map. So then there, I really want to get a good idea of what data this is. You know, just looking at these numbers and these circles, it's not telling me very much. So I want to know what data is encompassing of this. So I'm going to use the Lasso tool. I'm going to draw a polygon around that data and double-click to finish drawing your polygon. When you do that, when you double-click, there's going to be a window that shows up, and it's going to detail all of the records that you just selected. But this is not super helpful because I want to do a little bit more analysis. I want to get a better understanding of how many species, which species, who was the organization responsible, all that. So you can continue on, and if you scroll to the bottom of that window, you'll see two buttons that will view this data either in a report or in a table. So to view that data in a report, you can really get a good understanding of what that data is and what it's all about. So you can see there in the report, it's a total of 701 observations. You see that it's a total of 7 species that are being reported on. And if you would scroll farther down in that report, it would highlight that information for you, and you would know exactly which species are being found. It also tells you that there's 3 separate individuals who are responsible for finding that information. And maybe it's important to know, too. Maybe you need to contact one of those individuals, or at least know what organization they're affiliated with. And that is all information that you can get from using the report tool. So does anyone have any questions about the Lasso tool before we keep going?
This is Fred Diefenbach. Just curious, you drew basically a square around the area of interest. Is there a way to import an existing shapefile or something similar so that, you know, if you have a fairly well-defined area of interest, that you could use that, having to redraw it every time?
Right. That's a good point. And right now, because I think the tool is so new, we have it at a pretty basic level. That's something that we could certainly entertain. If you wouldn't mind sending me an email after the training today with that suggestion, I can pass it on and see what we can do with it. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments before we keep moving forward? So I want to talk about downloading data. We talked about this already, but I do want to just go through this one more time so you guys know exactly how to do this. So to know what data is available to download from us, you have to know what your user level is. That is really key. And so in order to know what your user level is, remember it's it's on the main page in the upper right-hand corner. Here you can see I was logged in as a level 7. It's going to indicate how much data you can actually download. So user level is going to be based on the amount of training that you have. So after today's training, all of you are going to be at least a user level 7 or above. So that hopefully, you will have access to almost everything that you need at that point. Also, your user level is also based on the role that you have within your organization. And I say that because certain folks, like Nikki with the Cinemahoning CWMA, is in charge of an entire region, basically. And so Nikki would be able to have the ability to download data for her entire geography. In other words, she could download all of the data that was being found within her CWMA because of her role within her organization as the coordinator of that group. Okay, so if it's someone who doesn't have that role or just like a citizen scientist, the user level would never get to be that high just because it doesn't need to be. Through some of these real quick, user levels 0 through 1, you can't download any data. 2 to 4, you can download data that you entered or you are the observer for. 5 through 7, you can also, in addition to downloading data that you entered or the observer for, you can also download data that you are a project leader for. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the training. You have to be at least a level 5 to be a project leader. At a level 8, you can download data for your entire organization. If you are maybe like the president or someone that, that would be an appropriate role to then give that access to. Again, I'll go back to my example with Nikki at Cinemahoning. Nikki would, if she isn't already, she is able to be a level 9 because that allows her to download data for her entire geography, or in other words, her CWMA. And level 10 is going to be an administrator level. So myself and Amy Kirsten are all level 10s. I just want to reiterate that because of the way we have IMAP set up, there is no registered user that's able to download all data from IMAP. But if you are interested in getting data more so than what you can get outside of your user level, please get in touch with me and we can talk. So I did want to go through just some quick examples of some analysis that you can do based on the advanced data records and the tools that we have available in IMAP. So we'll go through a few of those before we wrap up. So analysis you can do, maybe you want to know who's working in the area that you're working in so that you could perhaps partner or just better educate yourself on who's working on what near you. For example, you could say you're the president of a local land trust in Allegheny County and you want to see who's managing invasive species in your region. Simple would use the Lasso tool to show you all the organizations who are conducting treatment in the Pittsburgh region. In order to do that, and we just went through the Lasso tool, so hopefully you guys remember all of that. You go to the map, turn your county layer and zoom into Allegheny County. Go ahead and turn on your treatment layer because that's really what's going to tell you who's doing what in that area. Zoom in, Lasso tool, and group together all the data that you're interested in viewing, which is what we're looking at here in the screenshot. Once you do that, you'll be able to view all the record details to find out which groups are active in doing work with invasive species management. You'll also be able to see the date that the activities are being that are happening on, as well as the name of the organization who's performing it. And so in my particular example where I was the president of a local land trust, I wanted to know about what's happening in Pittsburgh. My results tell me that organizations conducting treatment include the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, the Bartlett Tree Experts Group, and Steel City Grazers. And so again, this is based on data reported to IMAP. There may be other efforts that are happening that just are not logged in the program. Once they are logged, you can see that this type of analysis is really easy to do. And maybe you aren't familiar with that group, or maybe you want to partner with them on an upcoming event of some sort. And so this is a way for you to get to know who's doing what in your region that maybe you weren't aware of before. Another example would be to do some analysis on discovering data gaps for certain species. And so my example is, say you're a citizen scientist and you're living in York County. In order to aid efforts of natural resource professionals, you want to know which species may be underreported in your area. My example is, show me all the species currently reported in York County. You search for and report on new species and iMapInvasives. So what case is you're going to perform a custom observation query. So you go to the main page and click on Query and Reports, and in the geography section you would select York County, and then York, and then view that data in a report. And what the report would tell you is which species have already been found, and then from there you can decipher which species may be reported based on your own knowledge of what's there and maybe what's not showing up on the list. And again, this is really important because there is a lot of species out there that we don't have data for just because, you know, we don't have enough people out there searching for it, or perhaps a species that people think is really common, when in fact it isn't, or we just don't have the data to say that it's common. Anytime you can help to close up some of these data gaps, it's always a really good thing, and it benefits a lot of people, mainly who are doing work with management and those sorts of efforts. And the data results that I would get from this particular example, by looking at the report, show me that there's a total of 26 species that have been found in York County, and that's going to include various terrestrial and aquatic plants, of insects, and aquatic animals. And the report is going to detail exactly which species those are, so you can know. My last example for doing data analysis is to better prioritize your survey and treatment efforts and how you can do that. So here's an example. Say you're the leader of CWMA. In this case, we're going to use the Lake Erie Watershed CWMA as my example. You know what management efforts are currently underway or already been completed in the region that you manage. So ultimately, the data that you glean will help to prioritize future survey and treatment efforts in that area. So what you can do is use the Lasso tool to show you all of the assessment, survey, treatment, and infestation management records documented currently in the Lake Erie Watershed Cooperative Weed Management Area. What you do is go to the map, turn on the CWA layer and the reference layers, zoom into the area that you're interested in, which we can see here on the map. That's the size and the area of the Lake Erie Watershed, CWMA. So once you go ahead and do that, you can turn on the assessment, survey, treatment, and infestation management layers and use your Lasso tool to group all that data together. And like I showed you before, that window is going to pop up. It's going to show you all the various data that you are looking at, and you can really from there better prioritize to see what's been done, who's doing what, and how to hopefully manage and effectively do the work that you're doing in the future, and know that you're basing it on sound data because it's been recorded here in the database. Okay, so I do want to wrap up things. We're getting close to the end here, but I want to talk about some species that are considered early detection high priority, and these are ones to be on the lookout for, and if you find them, please report them to the iMap program. So I want to highlight a few species that are considered early detection. Just for your reference, an early detection species is considered to be a newly established species in Pennsylvania. It could be a species thought to be in Pennsylvania, but it's not well documented. Or a species that's not found in Pennsylvania at all, but expected to arrive soon. And all of these would be species that are considered to be moderately invasive. We have an early detection species. This is called spiderwort. And this is a species that is fairly aggressive and establishes itself in freshwater wetlands. The reason why it's an issue is it forms dense mats that crowd out native species, and it also is known to clog waterways. So So we know it's not in Pennsylvania, but it is in areas near us. So it's been found in Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, and several other southern states, as well as over on the West Coast in Washington and Oregon. So if you do find this species in Pennsylvania, you want to make sure that you report on it as soon as possible, because if it's found, hopefully you'll have time to eradicate or at least control it. Early detection species is the green crab. This is a crab that threatens other populations of native crabs, as well as clams, mussels, and oysters. And what it's doing is threatening these other native species by competition, predation, and the way that it burrows, its burrowing activities. So another reason why it's is an issue is because it's contributed to the decline of many valuable economic commercial species, such as soil crabs on the East Coast and Dungeness crabs on the West Coast. It also has the ability to consume 40 half-inch clams per day, as well as crabs that are its own size. This one also, even though it's not in Pennsylvania, is in the near vicinity of our state. You can see there in the United States distribution screenshot that is found throughout the coast of the Mid-Atlantic region from North Carolina and going northward. So it is nearby. If it's one that is found, we want to make sure that we report on it as soon as possible. In addition to early detection, we also have species that are considered high priority. These are species that are found in Pennsylvania, but they're not yet widespread. And the way we define that is it's being found in less than 1/3 of the counties in our state. And again, it's considered to be at least moderately invasive. So one of the high priority species is northern snakehead. This species has no natural enemies and can devastate populations of native fish and wildlife. Snakeheads compete with native fish by altering feed habits, food availability, and behaviors of other members of the ecosystem. This is also a very unique species in that it can survive out of water and moist locations, and can actually move over land on its own to bodies of water, which is super scary, but it can do it. This species has been found in Pennsylvania, and right now it's known to have been found, or currently is found, in portions of southeast Pennsylvania. An example of a high priority species is black jetbead. This species invades forested areas by creating a thick shrub layer, which can displace native shrubs, shade understory species, and restrict tree seedling establishment. And its invasive qualities, believe it or not, black jetbead is available for sale in nurseries, and you can also purchase it online. And it's a major issue I won't get into here, but it's just frustrating to know that these invasive species are causing destruction. They're still out there being sold, which is crazy. Now, so it is found in various parts of Pennsylvania, but it is still considered to be somewhat rare. It hasn't met that benchmark of over 1/3 of Pennsylvania counties. So this one is high priority. If it's found, we want to know about it, so hopefully we can do something about it. Wrapping up, I do want to point out some things regarding our website, the iMapInvasives website, that you may find interesting and check out in your spare time. So there's a section on our website under our resources tab called Be on the Lookout. And this is a place for you to come and learn species that are not yet in Pennsylvania but arrive at any time, and we really want to keep our eyes peeled for them, because if they arrive, we want to know about it and we want to report on them as soon as possible. So here's some examples of some species that are Be on the Lookout page. We have Asian longhorn beetle, Chinese mitten crab, and also Japanese sedge, all species that are not yet in Pennsylvania, and we hope to keep it that way. This is a list of all of our tracked species that you can go on our website, and if you're wondering if you track something, this is a way to find out. We have groups of species under categories called early detection, high priority, noxious weeds, and Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission banned species. And these are ones that really help to better define why they are important and why some species are a little bit more important to try to track and control. Especially, our noxious weeds, they're ones that have a lot of bad impacts, and we want to try to do something about those species as much as we can. Again, all of these species are ones that we want to track and record data on and do something about as much as we can. We have invaders. Another cool feature that allows you to learn about some of the invasive species that are invading and impacting our state, as well as other species that are found in nearby states. So this is going to include several different categories of species. You can click on any one of those species profiles and just learn more about the details for each one. Newsletters. We send out quarterly newsletters. And so this is a way for you to familiarize yourself more with the tools and other functionality involved in iMap. It's also a way for you to learn how people are putting iMapInvasives to use in their own work that they're doing. So some recent stories that we've highlighted in our newsletters include the finding of waveleaf basket grass, which was just last year. That was a brand new species to Pennsylvania. We got some reports in, and that was found specifically in York County. So that's what we would consider an early detection / high priority species that we really want to keep an eye on and try to do something about as much as we can. And there are already several agencies that are doing something about it. They're doing additional surveys to see if they can find where else it might be located. And all those details are in a newsletter article. Stacy Hall, she's with the Pymatuning State Park, shares information about control efforts that she was involved with as far as control and eradication efforts go for hydrilla in the Pymatuning Reservoir. And also, just recently, teachers from a program called Advancing Science were introduced to the iMap program. And teachers and educators in general are a really great group to reach out to as far as the iMap program goes, because that's a great outlet for more citizen scientists, especially to get involved with the iMap program. Also on our website is information on reference guides and frequently asked questions. So if you have any questions, or you want to go back to some things that we talked about today during training, the reference guides is a really great place to go to. And also just our frequently asked questions is another great place to go to and get some of your questions answered that you may have. So this is my second to last slide, and I'm going to put this out for anyone and everyone on the call today. If you'd like to share some information about how you're using iMap in the work that you do, if your work is related to your organization or if you're a citizen scientist, and maybe there's something from today's training that you learned that you're really excited about and you think would be relevant to your use of the program in the future. So if any of those questions you'd like to answer, feel free to do so. It's always great to hear your feedback.
This is Fred Diefenbach. I work for the National Park Service, and one of my jobs is to assist the Appalachian Trail with some of their management stuff. And this is why I was asking before about the Lasso tool. Now, we have an area of interest around the AT that it looks as well, but we use the 10-digit, not 12 or 8, so we're sort of in between. But the fact that you can identify groups that are active in the area and actually download the information that about their activities and whatnot, that's going to be really useful to us.
I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, just to get context of what else is happening in the area, because with the AT, one of the difficulties is that if there's time and energy spent mapping, but it's not being done by adjacent property owners, that you're sort of stream in that case. But if you know that somebody else is active in the area, it may make sense to combine efforts.
Is feedback anyone wants to give?
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Tara Rouse. I'm with the Allegheny. I'm on our stewardship team, so we manage properties throughout the county, and we've been doing invasive management work at a variety of properties, usually with volunteer groups, and excited to do with invasives now that we have been collecting information, but not putting it in one place for all of our different properties. And I just think having our invasive plant efforts will let us just a more part, I guess. So when we have volunteer groups coming out, we can prioritize what areas we're hitting.
Thank you. Is there anything to share before we wrap up?
Hi, Jessica Newber. I'm a biologist for the Park Service, and I'm in one of those areas that's kind of like a data gap on the map. And so I'm going to be using this summer with biotech also, and we're going to try and fill in some of the information that's missing from the river.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Nikki, call on you. Would you mind talking a little bit about how you guys are using IMAP and the work you're doing in your CWA?
Absolutely. We recently just got a grant that is specifically using invasives, and our goal is just to put information that we have on, so to say, our databases, map invasives, and to just continue putting more information. And that Lasso tool is going to be awesome. Once we get our treatment efforts and the iMap invasives, that will help us out with planning our story for more funding, and talking to our partners in general at our meetings, just tell them our state, what we've done, what we need to do.
Thank you so much. Well, we will wrap things up here. I always like to end by just saying thank you to everyone on today's call. I really appreciate you attending. I appreciate your questions and your feedback. And please feel free to reach out and contact me with any follow-up questions or comments that you might have. And feel free to be in touch, you know, as you go through and you're working on projects and you have a question or you just want to know something more about iMap. I'm always happy to help you as much as I can. And yeah, so thanks everyone for attending. It's been a great group and a great training.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.